Welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
I'm Lindsey.
And I'm Ron.
We're reviewing He's Just Not That Into You, starring Jennifer Goodwin, Justin Long, Ben Affleck, Jennifer Aniston, Drew Barrymore, Jennifer Connelly, Kevin Connelly, not related, Bradley Cooper, Scarlett Johansson, and Chris Christopherson. Directed by Ken Kwapis, based on the self-improvement book written by Greg Bernhardt and Liz DiCullo. Released in 2009 on a $40 million budget, grossed $128 million at the box office. Those authors also big writers and part of Sex and the City. And why are we doing this? Well, it's Valentine's Day, and I felt like, it was time for Film Strip to return to our rom-com roots. Because if you go back in the archives and go to episode 5, you'll see a string of rom-coms that Anna and I did together. Pretty Woman, While You Were Sleeping, Runaway Bride, and I think Sex and the City were the 4-pack there. And so it's always been something we've done, but we've done a lot of them through the years. I mean, we would return to that genre here and there. I mentioned Pretty Woman before. We did that. We did Runaway Bride. We came back around, and we thought about doing Sex and the City too, but neither of us liked it, so we ended up not doing that. We ended up going with something else. But we did some great rom-coms like My Bloody Valentine, Alien Resurrection. I mean, we've done the romance movies, so it was time to get back to that. So I wanted to pitch it to you two just to start with, sort of just thoughts on the genre in general of rom-coms. Is it something that you've watched a lot of? You visit often? Is it still there for you?
I wouldn't say I visit it often. I have my favorites that I think can be considered rom-coms. About a Boy with Hugh Grant is still one of my all-time favorites. Most Hugh Grant rom-com movies I generally like. And all of the ones that you mentioned, Pretty Woman, You've Got Mail, all that stuff. I've seen it. I think I have to be in a special mood for it, but 'tis the season with Valentine's Day, right upon us.
Right. Ron?
I am not exactly Dr. Rom-Com. It's not a genre that I'm a huge mark for. I mean, I like the ones that everybody likes, like When Harry Met Sally. You don't really have a choice. I like the more I like the ones that are more calm than rom. But I'm willing to give anything a try at least once. And this movie had so many people that I really like in it. I was like, all right, cool. I'll join in. We'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, this was also in the string, and it's still going on, of the ensemble movie, the dramedy, if you will. Let's get a bunch of people together, and we'll loosely string their story together over New Year's Eve or Valentine's Day.
Yeah, how was Gary Marshall not involved with this?
I thought he was. Yeah, I really thought he was. And when I was looking at the credits, and this is the first time I really paid attention to him, I was like, oh, this isn't Gary Marshall at all. This is the Sex and the City people and like one of their friends who also directed, Big Bird on the Loose from Sesame Street, which I loved as a kid.
It's Find That Bird, and it's wonderful. It holds up really well.
Yes, it does. You know what? I would agree. That's a good one. But he's done some other things too. He's still working. And so knowing now, and I didn't know it before, but knowing that the Sex and the City writers had some say in this would really opened up the movie. Because I've seen this before. I know Rachel and I rented it back in the day, and then I've just seen it, it would float around on TBS or something just here and there. I haven't sat down to watch it on purpose in years. And so Lindsey, this was your idea, so I have to know where that came from. I was like,
don't blame me.
Don't blame me. I'm just saying, you are the one that said, hey, we should do this. And I said, okay, it's time to get back to the rom-com roots. Sure,
yeah.
But why this one?
That's one of these things where I'm just thinking through. I'm definitely one of those people. I still have hundreds of DVDs and Blu-rays, like the actual discs. And I'm going through my mental Rolodex of what DVDs and Blu-rays I have. And that is one that I've had since the movie pretty much came out. And just kind of rattled it off like that's a movie. And I remember suggesting it in various situations in the past, and everyone was always like, I don't really like that movie. And, you know, I went through a phase where I refused to rent movies. I only bought them. And so this was, I think, one of those that I bought just right off the bat.
Got it when Blockbuster was closing down, or something
it
like
was
that.
probably a $7 Walmart find.
Yeah,
if I'm being honest, but
that $5 bin was hard to resist.
I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a cutesy little, albeit long movie.
Yeah. Ron, what about you? Any background with this one?
I have absolutely zero background with this movie. I've never seen it. I don't really remember people talking about it that much. And for whatever reason, it just zoomed right over my head the year it came out. I presume it was because I was doing other things and watching other things and doing stuff for Den of Geek or whatever. But yeah, no, absolutely zero background with it other than to say I watched one episode of Entourage.
There you go. It is kind of in that same vein of things. There's a little bit
Kevin
of that.
Connolly,
yeah,
the Hobbit man. So
yeah. For a while I did confuse him and Sean Astin with each other, which I shouldn't do because Sean Astin's had a longer career, I think. But
you know what though? They look so much alike.
They really do. I think Sean Astin's a little.
Well, he did.
stockier.
He filled out a lot for his role of Bilbo. Or not Bilbo, Samwise. What am I talking about?
But say you're the Lord of the Rings.
I know. I was like, they're gonna take my fangirl card away from me.
They're gonna take your ring away and throw it into the fires of Mount Doom.
No.
There we go. Your precious is gone. Speaking of precious, though, this movie stars Jennifer Goodwin, who I know from several turns like this. She's been in lots of this. She's done some movies with Kate Hudson and other things like that. And I kind of feel like for a long time, they were trying to make her the next girl next door thing. And then she just ended up doing Big Love, she was really good on. But I don't know. She just never, I don't know if she ever totally, massively hit. I'm sure she's quite successful. She's done a lot of movies and TV, but I don't know that she ever attained the Jennifer Aniston, all that stuff.
She didn't, but
I don't know if anyone's attained Jennifer Aniston except Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah,
that's a really good point. But no, yeah, I remember when they were actively trying to make her a thing, and it didn't really take. But she was incredible on Big Love. If you haven't watched it recently or at all, I would 100% recommend that. Some just wonderful work, especially by Bill Paxton, Chloe Sevigny, Jean Triplehorn. It's just like a murderous row of people. And that was my first exposure to her. And then after that, I was like, oh, I like this girl. I will watch her and other things. And I followed her to a couple of the rom-com things, but like I didn't bother with Grimm, the show she was on where she was Snow White, ? It was something about fairy tales. I didn't pay much attention to it.
Once, I think. Or is that right? Yeah.
Once Upon a Time, was that one?
I think that's what
there were like a couple that were dueling at one time.
Grimm was on Fox and once was on NBC, and she was on the one on NBC, which is how you know she made way more money.
Yeah, that is true. She got paid a lot more for that. But I'm with you. She's great on Big Love, but all the rom-com things I've seen her in, I'm just kind of like, it's fine. I mean, I happen to like the Something Borrowed movie just as an aside because it's so twisted. It's not what you expect. It's you're asked to side with the woman who steals her best friend's man. And that's a hard sell. But the way it's done, it mostly works. Just to do a side review of that, but maybe it's also because Kate Hudson's the person she's stealing him from, and I just don't like Kate Hudson. Sorry, just not my thing. So
she was likable in exactly one movie.
That's probably true. So I'm not a big Kate Hudson fan, but this movie though, I mean, it made a lot of money. But let's be honest, it got dropped at the end of January, right before Valentine's Day. The production company knew what they were doing. They're like, look, this is, it's either Oscar Wasteland or just whatever, Ghost Rider, drop it, whatever, whatever junk we've got. And the movie that's going to bring the dates out, it's definitely a date movie. Though I got to say, when I saw this in 2009 or whenever it got released on DVD later that year and stuff, I was in my early 30s, and it hits a little different in your 40s than it does in your 30s.
Hits a little different in your latter half of the 30s than it does in your early half of the 20s as well. I think when I first saw it, because I did see it the year it came out, and it wasn't in the theaters or anything, I remember liking it and thinking like, oh yeah, that's a good movie, but you're not familiar with all the situations. And now, however many years, 13, 14 years later, I'm like, oh yeah, I know every single one of these situations. If not personally, I've seen people go through it. I've had these conversations or I've heard these conversations, and it's like, this was really real. They weren't, it was interesting to watch. And then also to watch it from, this perspective of being on the outside and seeing everything unfold in front of you, incredibly infuriating at so many different moments.
Right. We'll have to get into it as we talk about it. But, I think I joked with the two of you in our text thread that this might be the whitest movie ever made. Like it even has the two black comedians in it, but still, it's like that didn't cut it. I mean, and I didn't need him to hit a quote. I'm not banging him for it. It's just like the most upper class white bread 30-somethings you could come up with since 30-something.
There were khaki cargo shorts involved, khaki cargo pants involved.
Yes.
Doesn't get much whiter than that.
A mysterious job. There's lots of things. We'll talk about all the people in it, but but the Baltimore setting, that's a neat thing because they specifically said they didn't want to do New York or LA, even though they shot most of this in LA. They did shoot a lot of it in Baltimore, and they did that specifically because they wanted something that wasn't the usual place where all these movies happen. And I'll give them credit for that. I mean, I haven't spent a ton of time around Baltimore. Lindsey, you're not that far from it. You spent some time there. I don't know if Ron, if you have, but it's a different setting for this kind of movie.
Yeah, it works out really well. It's not that dissimilar from LA or New York because you have a lot of options when it comes to the suburbs. You have the water right there, which played into Ben Affleck's character of having a boat. So you have all of the necessary pieces in a setting, and you have a lot of leeway to play around with that, as much as you'd have in LA or New York, except maybe mountains like in Southern California. But other than that,
I just don't understand how you can make a movie that is set in a restaurant or set partially in a restaurant and you have, it's just the whitest restaurant that's ever been. I've never worked in the food industry, but I know enough people who have to know that the back of house staff should be 95% Hispanic and the other 5% are strung out on drugs.
That's right. Pretty accurate. Spent plenty of time working in the restaurant industry and bars and sports bars, and that's pretty accurate.
The blonde girl that Justin Long has
Busy
too much
Phillips.
Patron with one night.
Yeah,
she's on coke. There's no doubt. That character, not her as a person, but as a character, she was definitely on coke. I'm sorry,
it could be two things, Jay.
Yeah. That's what I would guess. But I guess we should do a plot summary for the uninitiated. I tried to keep this sort of short and as snarky as possible.
Unlike this movie, yeah.
Unlike this 2-hour movie. In Baltimore, we follow the ins and outs of love lives of several 20, 30-something bland white people, all connected in some way or another to Gigi, played by Jennifer Goodwin, who just can't seem to align her ideals and a potential partner with the people she actually dates. Reinforcing her romantic confusion are all the people she interacts with. There's her sister Janine, who's married to Ben, which only happened because she threatened to break up with him. And while Ben is kind of unhappy and he finally gives into cheating on her, whether it be with cigarettes or some rando that he meets at a grocery store. And that rando happens to be Anna, a yoga instructor / aspiring singer / pre-Black Widow Scarlett Johansson, desperate to have someone like her for more than her looks or, quote, talent. There's Gigi's coworker, Beth, who's in a long-term relationship with a decent guy, Neil. That's Jennifer Aniston and Ben Affleck. But he won't commit to marriage because he doesn't really like the whole idea. And that causes her to break up with him before having to care for her ailing father, Chris Christopherson, who has a heart attack. At maybe the worst wedding reception ever. We'll talk about that. And all the ins and outs swirl around until we finally get some resolutions here. And I've left out a few characters, but we'll get to them. Gigi confides often in Alex, the bar manager, who offers advice, which she misreads as romantic interest, but it turns out Alex actually does dig Gigi, though it takes him a bit to realize this. And they end up together. Janine finally figures out Ben is cheating on her because he tells her in a Home Depot, of all places. But the big thing is he's lying about his smoking behind her back, and her father died of lung cancer, so she leaves him a pack of American Spirits and says, have at it. And so she moves on without him. Anna, tired of being objectified and used, moves on as well, focusing on self-improvement over other things. And Beth has to care for her ailing father and sees all the chaos of her family around and no one willing to help. But Neil steps in to, help her out in a tough time. And in a great reconciliation, they get married on his sailboat in the whitest, richest way possible. And there's more, but you basically get the gist. And that's, he's just not that into you. And the whole premise of that book is a man, it's basically the Alex and Gigi conversations, but in a book form. It's here's everything that you hear and see that you're misreading. And then it's the female perspective of like, well, this is why I misread that. And it's sort of coming to realization about how that would work. And then when they adapted it into a screenplay, they built these characters around it. But that's how all of this stuff works. And I guess we have to start with Gigi because she is the lens of the movie in some way. And I like Jennifer Goodwin a little bit. As we've said, she's not a terrible actress. She's not entirely annoying, but her character may be the densest person on the planet that I've ever seen in a movie. Next only to Kevin Connolly, who we'll get to later, and she does have a date with. But I don't know. Like I'm sitting there watching her sort of fumble through this, like she's some sort of throwback to Howard Hawks' His Girl Fridays or something, and it's just not working in this setting at all.
She's just a huge spaz.
Yeah, she's definitely like trying to be like the dizzy, plucky dame that you would see in like a screwball comedy, just with not quite as much wit or charm, which is not an indictment on her, but she's not given a lot of things to be witty about or charming about. She definitely does. She definitely has her moments, but it's like those are few and far between, and she's saddled with one of the more obviously this is how it's going to end plots of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't really help her much.
Yeah. I mean, there are some really plucky moments that she has where she's just immediately likable, like the little muffin bit in her hair when she like comes back into the office. Like there are some really very cute moments for her. I really like her dynamic with Justin Long's character. I can't think of his name now. We just
Alex.
said it. Yes, with Alex. When they were friends, and he was just like showing her the ways of the world. And she was like, yeah, he's not really even that cute. And I was like, yeah, oh, this is so nice. Look at them just being a nice platonic friendship. This is not how it's going to end, but
no,
a girl can dream.
If you want a platonic friend, you need to hang out with John Hodgman, I guess.
I will say this as the throughout most of my teenage years and the better part of my 20s, I was the platonic friend of all the girls I wish I could date, and I sort of accepted that role, and I was offered the shoulder that got cried on, and I didn't have the good Alex comebacks for everything, and I certainly didn't have the sage wisdom that he has being a bar manager and stuff, but I thought he was fun. I like Justin Long. Even in bad movies, I always feel like he gives a pretty good performance. He's a fun actor, and I liked him all the way back to like Jeepers Creepers and stuff like that, which I know that's a movie that's hard to talk about because of the people that made it or the guy that made it, but he's good in that and he's fun. And I kind of put him in that same, he's sort of Kevin Smith adjacent, that crowd of people, so
he was in a couple Kevin Smith movies.
He was, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But he kind of runs in that same sort of crowd, elder millennial, lower, younger Gen X. He's right there, and so I like him. I think he's fun, and they do have good chemistry together. I'll say that, like they obviously have good banter, and I don't know if they got along or not. Maybe they hated each other, like Deborah Winger and Richard Gere and Officer and a Gentleman, but you wouldn't know it. Like they were fun together. But I wrote him down like he's kind of a know-it-all nice guy, but he's kind of worthless just the same. And that's, I don't know. Like I don't know what else to say about the guy. I mean, he's just sort of there.
Bar is backed up, like elbow to elbow, and he's just like, "Hang on, guys, I gotta take a call." I was like, "No, that would never happen." You probably wouldn't even hear the phone ring if it was really that busy.
That's why all his staff at the end of the movie hate him, because he keeps bailing on him to talk to Jennifer Goodwin on the phone. And they're like, "Look, we've got 8 drink orders backed up. We're out of glasses. Cut some limes."
I did like to think of this as, because Justin Long was also in Waiting, and if you guys recall at the end of Waiting, he was kind of doing this, what am I going to do with my life? I think this is what he did with his life. This is his, this is his moment. This is what he decided to do. This is his upgrade from working in an Applebee's or whatever that was.
Yeah, like they don't say what his story is, but I kind of feel like he was a guy that was in school and he was working his way through school like a lot of us did. He was working in a Chili's or an Applebee's or something like that. And at some point along the way, he either hit the wall academically, or he just said, bump it, and got a full-time gig. And this is kind of his life, but he's worked his way in, and that's what makes him streetwise and all that stuff. As streetwise as you can be in, again, the whitest movie ever, because these people he's the only one that I see actually perform real work outside of Drew Barrymore, who types on a computer at one point. But I mean, like nobody else does actual work. You see them at work, but they don't really do anything. So I'll give him credit for that. He actually does, work, because and Lindsey, as you well know, you have to in that. You can't stand there and talk on the phone with people. Jeez. So
come on, man.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean,
he's gonna do something between rails off the bar,
Yeah,
that's what it is. We also have Gigi's sister Janine, Jennifer Connelly, the Gen X Wonder Girl. I mean, come on, everybody my age was obsessed with her, growing up, for lots of reasons. Labyrinth being a big reason why, as on a previous episode talked about with our friend April. But I know so many people like Janine that they kind of hit a point and they just became the home renovation queen. Some of them even got TV shows for it. I don't know those people, but she's just kind of that person. She just sort of funnels all of her energy into the appearance of what her life is supposed to be. And of course she's married to the douchebag of all time, played by Bradley Cooper.
Frosted Tips Bradley Cooper.
Boy, yeah. I mean, this is like on the cusp of Wedding Crashers douchebag Bradley Cooper. This is before
Which also took place in Maryland.
See, good point.
Mm-hmm.
But it took me a long time to ever like Bradley Cooper in a movie because he kept doing roles like this. I was like, this guy's an asshole. I don't even know who he is. But watching this this time, because my memory of him was like, this guy's just cheating on his wife behind his back. And he really resists that for a little bit. I'm not getting him off the hook, but he doesn't completely throw himself at Scarlett Johansson. He feels weird about it when he, talks to her at the local fresh market or whatever the hell that is, buying his super hipster IPA beer.
Yep. And he comes clean after it happens, very shortly after it happens. So there is, I had a hard time figuring out if there was actual or any kind of like remorse there, or if he was truly using it as an out to get out of the marriage. Like he wanted his wife to be the one to say it. And then when she was like, no, we're going to stick this through. You want to, right? I mean, the shock on his face was, yeah, I think that would probably be a shocking reaction in that situation. But what else are you going to do in the middle of a Home Depot? You know,
I don't know. There's lots of lumber around.
There's lots of corpse burial tools you can buy.
Right.
I'm sure, if you gave Luis Guzman $100, he'd look the other way while you dug a hole in the backyard.
He'd probably help you dig it.
All right, so the funniest scene in the movie to me, we're just going to jump ahead since we just mentioned Jennifer Connelly and Luis Guzman, is when those two are having their talk about midway through the movie.
Yeah. It's like, it's about trust. Yeah.
And Luis Guzman is just so great at that deadpan face where he's like, oh, yeah, no, okay, sure, lady. He's just so good at that kind of like confused but scared. I guess.
Yeah, who am I talking to right now?
That he rolled with it though. His character just rolled with it. What a great role. I do like at the end of the conversation when she realizes that she kind of
projected,
went off her rocker. Yeah, and she was like, "Hey, we're good, right?
We're good, Javier, right? We're
you
okay.
and me."
Yeah. Yeah, lady. Sure. But that's their dynamic. The thing we should say about those characters is Janine and Ben are married because they were dating for a long time, and she basically said, like, we're either doing this or we're not. And I don't know about y'all. I know people that were in that exact situation, and none of them are still together because
also that's
not the reason to get married,
Or if they are, they struggled for a while, at least at one point.
There's always exceptions to rules, but I'm saying personally, the people I know that were in that are no longer together, and it didn't end exactly the same way, but it pretty much always ended with one of them going the other direction. You know?
That's because you're not friends with Jennifer Goodwin and Justin Long, the exceptions.
That's true. I have people to keep me grounded. Well, yeah, that's the funny thing is the way these people all tie together. We'll get to the Ben Affleck and Jennifer Aniston's characters in a minute, but Janine, like we said, is Gigi's sister. So Ben is the brother-in-law. So they have some relationship, and it's I don't know. It's weird how they all connect together here. But the two of them, though, I'll say this: like, if they wanted us to have a couple that we were almost rooting for them to break up, they picked two people that looked like they did not get along with each other at all. And I don't know if that's true or not, but like Jennifer Connelly and Ben and Bradley Cooper looked like they were perfectly annoyed with each other at every time they were together. And maybe that's what they were supposed to do. And if so, great acting choices, gang. But I don't know. I had a hard time seeing them together because I was like, Janine seems to be such a precise person. I don't know. And she won't put up with a lot of things. I don't know if she would put up with the frosted tips. Like, I really had a problem with those frosted tips. I'm sorry.
Yes. They seem like polar opposites. You always see her in the same V-neck sweater in a different color with a different color button-up shirt underneath it. And just very, like...
She's the cover of Woman's World magazine at all times.
Yeah, very organized. I bet she's incredibly organized. Well, you can see that when she lines up all of his clothes at the end of the staircase.
When she goes off and blows that mirror into 1,000 pieces and then gets the broom and sweeps it up.
Absolutely, that would have been me. Like, I could see myself getting, and I've not to that extent, but like, and mainly when I was younger and had less control over my emotions, but like, I feel like I could absolutely see myself getting mad, breaking something, and then just being like, damn, now I got to clean it up.
Exactly.
Now, all I can imagine is Lindsey doing the scene at the end of the room where Tommy Wiseau trashes his apartment.
Yes. Lindsey, as an actor, I demand you do that. So, we got to see a dramatic repeat.
Okay, right on that.
Yeah, get yourself a hollow, empty tube TV, but you have to pretend like it has weight when you lift it over your head to smash it.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
I'm up to this challenge.
Yeah, it is funny to watch her completely melt down in that moment because it's the one time she cuts herself loose. She does it a little bit with Javier when she's projecting on him, as we talked about, which is a funny scene. Because you can tell very quickly, like, he doesn't realize where this is coming from and he doesn't want to anymore. And she just keeps backing him up, but then she catches herself. But, I'll say this about the Bradley Cooper character, like I said before. On some way, I can have a little bit of sympathy for it because he doesn't want to cheat on his wife. And I'm not saying he's not at fault for this, but he bats it away for a little while, but then he finally gives in. And you can tell, like, when he makes that phone call back, like, hey, I thought I could help you with your career after all. And it's been a few weeks or whatever. And I'm like, oh no, don't do that. Don't start having that conversation. And you just know it's going to go bad.
Yeah, that's tough. And I feel like Scarlett Johansson at the beginning, she seems very innocent and, even deep, far too deep, grocery store conversation notwithstanding. Yeah. But when he's like, I don't do this. And she was like, you don't help struggling singers or struggling musicians. And she just seems so innocent. And then she's like, I just really love him. And that's when I think she carries that naivety through the whole thing we see. Now, she does that very well. But
is she being naive in that moment, or is that her angle?
See, I'm with you, Ron. I kind of felt like that was her angle. That's the twist on this, is that in the 80s or before, she would have been the naive, bubbly blonde. But in this one, she's more confident. She's in control, and she uses that as her in with people, and then she does what she wants. And that's why I wrote at the end, that's not, the movie doesn't tell us that. I just kind of felt like Anna was like, I'm just going to stop letting myself be used, and I'm just going to kind of work on me for a little while, and that was good for her. So
yeah, I saw it a little differently. I think that she is incredibly naive and green, and she tried to use that as her angle, but she was not successful.
I do feel like there's some merit to that, because they do establish in her conversation that she has with, is it Jennifer Aniston? She talks to somebody at some point.
Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore, yes.
Done. Yep.
Yeah, and she says, well, and he was married for somebody for 13 years, and then now he's been married to his second wife for 22 years, blah, 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 blah. And so she thinks, well, if that can happen for them, maybe it can happen for me. And she thinks that, she's really going to get somewhere with Bradley Cooper. Mm-hmm. So it's both her angle to me, and it also is a sign of her naivete that she thinks, that she's the exception to the rule, which ties us back to basically the rest of this movie.
Yeah.
Right. I can pull him away from her, and then, he'll be with me forever. But Bradley Cooper also needs to work on himself.
Look, if he stuck with her through the whole thing where she got addicted to heroin, then he'll stick around for anything.
Bradley Cooper is this sort of, again, cross-section of hipster Gen X, elder millennial thing. I mean, all of it, again, I picked on his beer choices. He smokes American Spirit cigarettes. I mean, that's a very specific brand.
Okay, can we talk about the American Spirit cigarettes?
Can we talk about, my wife's comment was like, I wonder how much they paid to be a part of this, and you could still do that in the 2000s. But anyway.
Number one, American Spirit did not pay anybody anything for anything. Number two, did he used to be like a homeless punk rock kid or something? Did he used to have like some?
No.
He was from SLC Punks. He was the homeless punk rock kid whose dad paid for him to go to Harvard, and he was like, "I'm going to fix the system from the inside." I bet that
makes sense. Also, we should watch SLC Punk for.
I agree. Yeah,
I had a whole other backstory for him, y'all. He went to like UMass or something like that, and he was in a Replacements cover band.
BU. I bet he went to BU.
There you go. It's something like that. And he was in a Replacements cover band and liked the Goo Goo Dolls before Johnny Resnick became a woman. And he said stuff like that. And he was into that. And then he stumbled around and had like a 3.9 GPA in economics or something. It was like, guess I'll go to law school. And he ended up doing that. And he just fell into this, sort of yuppie lifestyle. But that's how he rebels, is with his cheap ass cigarettes.
Now, do you think do you think it was a Replacements cover band? Or do you think it was like Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers cover band?
Well, either. That's a good point. But I kind of went with Replacements just because I sort of equated him to Paul Rudd's character in Knocked Up and This Is 40. He sort of comes across some of the same way, but Paul Rudd's way more likable. He clearly is an attorney, but he's not in like a stuffy attorney world, but like contracts or something financy. There's a lot of sports teams around. Maybe he does something like that because he's got friends that do music, work. And so he clearly does something that's, quote, cool, but he makes a ton of money at it. Because, that's some nice suits he's got in that closet.
Yeah, he's like entertainment law or contract law or some sort of nefarious entertainment industry.
When it comes to Ben, we're supposed to feel sympathy for him, but it's just hard to, because he does make the worst choices ever, and he deserves to wind up alone. And you kind of see that on his face, though. I don't know if Bradley Cooper did that on purpose or if they told him to do that, but you kind of see it at the end when he's behind the pretty girl at the grocery store, and he's like, I ain't saying nothing to this one. He's like, I'm just going to buy my beer and go home.
He is happily alone. Well, or at least contentedly, I would say. Like I feel like at least most of the characters end up right where they want to be, whether they knew it or not, by the end of the movie, which is the nice rom-com style. Everything's wrapped up in a nice, tidy little bow.
Yeah.
He didn't look especially happy, but I feel like maybe he needs some alone time to learn, to be better for his next ex-wife.
Right.
Exactly.
Or figure out who he is. I don't think he even says something like that at one point to Ben Affleck when they're talking on the boat, and that brings us to Neil and Beth, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Aniston, who I was convinced they had dated at one point, but upon the Googling before the show, nope, they're just friends. And at this point, I think he was married to Jennifer Garner. You guys told me so.
They do have such great on-screen chemistry, though. They really, I thought they did.
Yeah, they are the most of all of these couples. They seem to be the most real one. They remind me of a lot of friends who are still married and have been together for years. And you look at them and you go like, how does that work? Because she's so put together and has all of her crap going, and he just seems like he wears cargo pants. I don't know what he does for a living.
Do? Yeah, exactly.
My guess was day trader. I don't know. Rod, it's insurance scam. What do you got? I don't know.
My thought was he is one of those people who operates his boat as a quote-unquote fishing boat and collects a lot of government subsidies without actually having to fish. So basically, he's a con artist. Alternately, he made it big with a comic book in the 90s about his brief foray with a lesbian woman, and then he wrote Blunt Man and Chronic.
There you go. Yeah, he does.
But first he went to the school in School Ties.
There you go. Right. Well, I wrote it off as like he just came from money and he just sort of hedge funds. He like just keeps it alive. But he's just kind of like this was the dude that was in school with Bradley Cooper, and maybe they were, but he graduated with the 1.9. From Ole Miss or something. Like he just barely got out.
D's get degrees. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He skated through on that last one, but whatever, because he met Beth, and they are really good together. And I attribute a lot of that to the fact that Ben Affleck knows how to play just an affable dude, because I think he's just an affable dude. That kind of seems to be what he is. And Jennifer Aniston is a really fun actor. She she plays the same thing all the damn time. That's the difference. She's stretched a few times in her career, but most of the time she plays the same person, but she's really good at it and she's fun. And it's funny to me to see her, because I didn't watch Friends. I know this is a big shock to everyone. That was not a show I cared anything for. So I don't know her from that. I know her from the bad movie choices she's made, starting with Leprechaun. And so I know her from that. And so I'm like, well, boy, she really turned into a great actor. Good for her. But I like them as a couple and as characters because, like I said, they seem to be the most real. And she seems to be the one that everybody's walking on eggshells around. And if they just would like stop talking about it, she would be okay. Like she's getting her sister's wedding together and they're talking about like it had to be done. And, marriage is forever. And she's like, okay, thanks. I'm not married, but gee, appreciate that. She feels like she doesn't want to feel like she's left behind, but everybody's telling her she's missing out on something, right? And she's really not.
Yeah.
No, she's not, because my cousin and her boyfriend have been together for like 40 something years at this point, and they're never going to get married. And they seem fairly happy, or at least they're still together, I guess. Who knows how happy people are, but
I mean, yeah.
Now, here's the thing about Jennifer Aniston. She does play the same kind of character all the time, but she, like you said, she is really good at it. And it feels very natural, like a very natural companion to the Ben Affleck character, because they feel like they balance each other much better than all these people who are married in this movie and all these people who are dating in this movie, who all seem like just absolutely terrible matches for each other. Because like she has her nebulous job at the Blade. He does his drug running or whatever his deal is.
Rescuing hostages with the boat. That's what he's doing.
That boat is loaded down with cocaine, Jay, and we all know it.
Him and Mickey Monday are buddies. Yeah,
he's the one who's smuggling those American spirits to Bradley Cooper's character. Those are like stolen cigarettes that fell off the back of a freighter.
No, he did what Beverly Hills Cop, the initial setup for Axel Foley was. He robbed a cigarette truck and restole them. Tax stamp. You can't get no more legit than that. That's Ben Affleck.
No, this is all he made all his money robbing banks in Boston and bought that boat.
That also is true.
Yeah, we're just going to tie it back to everything Ben Affleck's ever done. But yeah, those two have really good chemistry, and I always feel like I'm never really sure what it is about Jennifer Aniston that has prevented her from becoming like the huge movie star that she probably should be. And I don't know if it's because she is fairly one note. She's good at the one note she does, but it's like she's like a baseball pitcher who can go out and throw a 103 mile an hour fastball, throw like an 85 mile an hour like changeup, but has no other pitches.
I think it's because she has a face that doesn't transition well. I mean, I'm sure it would transition beautifully to anything. She'll always be beautiful. And I think that is the thing. So like some actors have these faces that you put a pair of glasses on them, like Clark Kent, and they look like a totally different person. Or
Drew
you dye
Barrymore
their
in this movie. Yeah.
Or you dye their hair, or they lose 20 pounds, or you change their outfits or whatever, and they can embody this entire other thing, and you believe it because they're so good at like looking like somebody else. And I don't think, especially at this point, I don't think anyone would ever see Jennifer Aniston as anyone other than Jennifer Aniston. And she's very good at being Jennifer Aniston. That's what the people want.
Do you think it's because she is like the most famous person in this movie by a country mile? Like, she's literally she's the most famous person in this movie.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, Drew Barrymore was a superstar, but people have watched Drew Barrymore from a small child grow up to an adult. There's been a lot of different stages of Drew Barrymore where you've been able to be like, oh, this is what Drew Barrymore's doing now. This is how she's changed from the last time we saw her. Jennifer Aniston is like, I did Leprechaun. Now I'm doing Friends. I'm 24 years old. I'm the most famous person on the planet. I'm going to be on this TV show 24 episodes a year for 10 years. Just deal with my face. And
my haircut is going to change the way American women dress for decades. Like,
it's true.
I mean,
don't mess with perfection.
I think you've hit it, Lindsay, is that I think she knows what she plays well, and she got typecast. And at some point she just said, you know what, I'm just going to steer into that because I'm getting work. And let's be honest, once you hit 32 as a woman in Hollywood, if you're still getting work, sign up, because it doesn't happen. I mean, it's unfair, but yeah.
Still getting work.
Yeah.
I think she's 50 now, in her 50s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are jobs for actresses who are over the age of 30 are quickly expanding, and rightly
Thankfully.
so. But but I mean, well, not only that, but she's expanded her portfolio too. I think she was like CMO of something of like Vital Proteins. She's like, she's a smart cookie. She's doing her thing.
She hired a really good accountant somewhere along the way, and she leaned into, I'm going to make this last. And let's not lie, syndication money is real, y'all. Like that friend's check coming in every quarter is pretty nice.
Well, and she's from an acting family. Her dad was an actor on like John Anderson. He did like soap operas and stuff, right? Or he does soap operas.
Yeah.
So she knows that like the good thing about being typecast is you will always be able to eat.
Yeah, you always get work.
That's true.
Yeah, you're never gonna sit around for too long unless you just want to. And she hasn't wanted to, and more power to her. I just saw her like selling collagen on a commercial. Like
that's the company that she's on the C-level board
into the water and you drink it. And I was like, for Jennifer Aniston, maybe I should try it. Maybe it'll
she
make my
marketed
face look
for
better.
Aveeno for a while, which is perfect for her. Like she's good at marketing herself and picking products that she markets for.
Well, think about everybody in this movie that we named. They kind of all fit that category. Jennifer Goodwin figured out what sort of niche she fell in. Kevin Connolly's always played that sort of likable douchebag friend, and that's what he is.
Justin Long is always Justin Long.
Justin Long is always I'm wiser than I look, but I'm really a bum.
Whether he's in Jeepers Creepers or the Apple guy. Remember when he was the Apple guy?
He was the Apple guy, yeah. I think he's still doing those from here. And then Drew Barrymore was the girl next door that became the cokehead next door, that became the girl that got murdered in Scream, that then became this rock star producer, that then became a rom-com favorite with Adam Sandler. And then she just did whatever the hell she wanted, which is what she does now. Jennifer Connelly was, again, the Gen X dream girl who turned into a really good actress and
the thing
just did that.
Her is that Jennifer Connelly, because I'm actively watching Snowpiercer as we record this, and my reviews are up at Den of Geeks, so plug for that. And she was on the first 2 seasons of Snowpiercer, and she played I have it together on the outside, but on the inside, I'm breaking apart because of the stress of my situation so well throughout that show. And that's one of the things she does really well in this movie. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, she's good at the everything's fine, except in my eyes. You can see how scared I am and how my world is ruined in my eyes. And that's the thing she does so well, and that she's become so good at, like, as an adult actress rather than as, the teenage actress or whatever. And
go back to Labyrinth. That's the same character.
Yeah,
she
that's
did
the same kind of
thing in that.
And that's really not easy to do. And I feel like she's got the least good role in this ensemble, or the role that gives her the least amount of comedy. But when she gets her scenes, like with the scene with Luis Guzman, or when she has her meltdowns, she gives it socks in a way that I think some people couldn't.
Yeah, because she could come off like a total shrew, even though she's right to do so. But because Jennifer Connelly has like soul in her performance, you feel for her. Like, you really just like, you want to like buy Janine a drink and just say, just let it all out, girl. Just what's happening. Like, she needs to go to Justin Long's bar and demand 3 martinis and go, let me tell you about my life.
That's what this movie's missing, is that scene right there. Yep.
Let's not make this movie any longer.
Well, I mean, we can cut out a couple of other scenes. I'm not saying, we couldn't trade off here, but.
Yeah, I'll say now, like, I think as cute as it is, the way Kevin Conley and Drew Barrymore end up together, because she's his ad maker for his real estate business, and they end up meet cuting at a restaurant at the end or whatever. And I'm not so sure she didn't just stalk him there, but whatever. You could cut them from this movie. They didn't even have to exist, and I think you'd be fine. Like, it also would cut 15 minutes off the runtime, which I would be okay with, because you could just have some other loser friend that Justin Long, knows, that tried to go out with Jennifer Goodwin and ghosted her. Like, it doesn't need to be him.
Drew Barrymore's character is probably one of my favorites in the whole movie, so I did appreciate her being there, just if for no other reason than a little, like, adorable comic relief. But I think Connolly's character served to show how young or naive, I don't know how we want to say that, Scarlett Johansson was, because she's clearly just like using him to make her feel good about herself. And so I think he adds a little bit more insight into her character. Would the movie have been still the movie without him? Yeah, sure. I can't disagree with that, but I think that was his purpose.
He over compliments her in an attempt to try to sleep with her again, because they hooked up once at a party or something, and he's just obsessed with her. But for her, it was just, a thing. And he's like, oh, I really liked you. And then, they date, but she's not ready to commit. She didn't want to do all that stuff. And, but at least she told him, and so he's like, okay, well, that better know now than later. And so then he ends up with, hanging out with Drew Barrymore, which is cute.
Well, to steal a quote from the famous M. Bison, for Kevin Conley, the night he hooked up with Scarlett Johansson was the most important day in his life. For her, it was a Tuesday.
Right, there you go. That is probably a very accurate way of describing it.
That's perfect. Yep.
Yeah, I agree. So we talked about like the rom-com way that everything resolves, and I want to come back to Beth and Neil, the Jennifer Aniston and Ben Affleck characters, because I said I felt like they were the most real people. And when she breaks up with him, and then her dad, Chris Christopherson, who also just plays the same person all the time, no matter what he's in, vampire movie, whatever, I'm just the crotchety old guy. So I wrote a lot of songs you like, kids, or your parents do, but whatever.
If you kids want to... While we're giving out advice to the kids, listen to Sunday Morning Coming Down.
There you go. Thank you very much. I agree with that. So, dad's dad, and he's had a heart attack. And so she goes and does, what you do. You take care of dad, and like the family's there, but her sisters are kind of worthless. Her brother and brother-in-law are just sort of bums. And like, she sort of sees like, I had a really good life, and I let all of you morons talk me out of it, and I hate you all for it. And you can tell she's frustrated, and I don't get too sentimental anymore because I'm old, but I thought it was a real sweet moment when she walks in the kitchen, and it's no longer a disaster because Ben Affleck's washing the dishes, and he's filled the fridge with groceries, and he didn't have to, because it's your dad. I was with you for 7 years. And as he tells her, I'm the same as I was the day you left me. I still care about you, and you need help, and I came to help. And I just really dug that moment.
I also love his line where he goes, I got stuff that your dad likes, but I got some healthy stuff too, which really drove home the fact that he really knows her dad almost, as well as he possibly could, at that point, which is just really sweet, and clearly knows him way better than any of her other in-laws.
I feel like Ben Affleck's really good at playing the likable bro that we've talked about.
He's a likable bro.
And this is the part of the movie where that really comes through the most. It's like, he doesn't have to do these nice things, but he's a nice guy. Yeah, does he spend a lot of time on his boat? Sure. You got to keep the cocaine money coming in. Does he wear ridiculously terrible cargo pants that were bad even in 2009? Yeah, but
he's still bad now.
He's Ben Affleck. That's what Ben Affleck does. If you white, you Ben Affleck, as they say. But,
can we do role models next? Let's do
There we go. Right.
I kind of want to do role models next because it feels like the inverse of this movie, like
I love
younger
that
version of this movie.
It's so good. You white, you Ben Affleck. That's true, though. All right.
But yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes this character feel the most grounded, because he is, he's not just a one-dimensional douche bro. He's not trying to be something he's not. He's just like, this, I don't want to get married, but we can be together. This is me. And then the one thing I don't like is I don't like the fact that he comes around and decides to get married to Jennifer Aniston after all. But I also feel like, if it's important to her, then he would just kind of shrug his shoulders and go along with it.
You know this, Ron, Liz, you do too. You both with long relationships, all this. You do things for your significant other just because it's important to them. If it's a sacrifice for you, then okay. If I could, and I couldn't grow it as long as everybody could see Ron's wonderful beard here, I would have facial hair forever. But my wife hates it, and she hates it on me. And so if I ever grow it out for a couple of weeks, it's coming off pretty quick. Why? Because Rachel doesn't dig it. So, okay, that's a small thing. And it's not nearly on the level of what Ben Affleck does here, but I appreciate that sentiment just the same. Because you do that. You do things for your significant other because it's important to them.
I think he did it for the cargo pants.
You think you got to keep those after that?
Now she can't throw them out because they're an important part of their relationship.
they were the pants that held the ring.
Now, to me,
throw it into Mordor.
To me, it would be completely a win as if at the end of the movie when they're getting married, he's wearing those ratty ass cargo pants.
Oh, that would have been perfect. Yes, he should have had that suit up with those pants on. They messed that up by not having that. So yeah. But I mean it is the resolve that you want, the big rom-com resolve. Everybody kind of gets what they want, or what they deserve. You should say in this case. And I do like though that it's not all clean and easy. Like, Anna and the Ben character have to be alone. They got to be alone. Both of them need it, and definitely not with each other. And it looks like he's at least sort of learning his lesson because he doesn't talk to that woman in front of him at the store. And Janine is moving on and learning she doesn't have to be somebody's wife to be happy, and she's hanging up a new mirror that she hopefully won't smash. I kind of wanted her and Javier to date. Like I wanted to see them out like on a date. Like I thought that would have been fun.
That would have been adorable. Very odd matchup. I like her resolve at the end. I do like the mirror hanging. I thought that was nice. Like she finally, she looks like a weight has been lifted off of her shoulders when she does that. So goes back to her acting chops.
That's another thing that Jennifer Connelly is always really good at. That moment of feeling relief and being able to let go. She communicates that really well. But I think Javier would have run away.
No, I'll cash your check, but I'm done. You can imagine what that was like.
I can only imagine how much of a terror she was during the whole renovation process to that poor man.
Oh, come on.
Having had people in my house for like a year working on stuff to redo a couple of bedrooms in the upstairs bathroom, and me even being out of their hair as much as I could and still being frustrated with the whole process. I can't imagine how someone that hands-on about the whole thing would have been to that poor man.
It's frustrating.
Well, I mean, she's always talking about like the tile's too small. We've got to change the tile. She's always doing something.
And she's clearly throwing herself into it because she is at her core unhappy with, I think.
Well, we didn't talk about their big scene. Like her and her husband they're not intimate with each other. So she goes to his office to surprise him, and he's in there banging Scarlett Johansson, who he throws in a closet so he can bang his wife. I'm like, oh my God. That's when you really turn on the Bradley Cooper character. Like, you're a piece of garbage. Like, I hate you.
Scarlett Johansson calls him something along those lines. Excuse for a man, I think, is what she said, something like that. But in that moment, and I knew what was going to happen because I've seen the movie before. And in that moment, I was like, they had plenty of time for her to put a dress on and just walk out, and just be like, oh, yeah, this is a client of mine. She's XYZ, stupid locks, like easily could have been avoided. Wouldn't have helped as a plot device, but it easily could have been that whole situation. Avoided.
Well, I also feel like this movie has a real issue with continuity, especially the shots of the outside. I don't know if you've noticed, but quite a few scenes will start in the daytime and end at night.
Yeah.
Throughout this movie. And so it gives us this weird nebulous dream quality where you're not really sure what time of day it is.
I feel like there's probably a 3.5 hour cut of this somewhere.
Oh, there 100% is like the 3 hour extended
Ridley Scott director's cut version of this nightmare.
Yeah, this is before Bradley Cooper becomes a raccoon and goes off to space.
It's before he becomes very much more likable. This is when he was playing the awful douche bro that you hated. Like he had made a career out of that. I kind of felt like he was just always going to be that until he started doing, he was likable in The Hangover. And then that sort of turned it around for him, But
he was also kind of a douche bro in The Hangover. But he
he's still likable because he's trying to keep his friends from doing something even dumber.
Yeah,
which is the amazing part. But you got that. But it does all. You'll wind up. Drew Barrymore decides to stop, looking too hard or trying too hard and just be herself. And she hits on the cute guy that she's built ads for. Okay, so there's that. And then, as we said, Gigi confesses to Alex and tries to make out with him after she co-hosts the party with him. That was so funny. And there was some good comedy in that.
Yeah.
And then but his realization of like, oh shit, I do like her. And when he's talking to Busy Phillips, like, yeah, you talk about her all the time, dude. Like you really should go and again, I've seen that happen and had that conversation with a friend. Like, dude, you talk about this girl that you don't like all the time. Are you sure you don't like her? And come to find out.
Mm-hmm.
But I love how he runs up to her, they have and then they do have kind of a cute ending where they're playing categories and she's making dip or some nonsense at his apartment. I mean, it's kind of funny, I mean, it's okay. But the crescendo is Beth and Neil getting married on that boat. But I'd still wish Neil had kept the cargo pants. That would have
been perfect. Just the cherry on top.
Yeah, but that would have made the movie like another 15 minutes longer.
This is true. It didn't need to be longer.
Fair point.
And neither does this podcast. So we're at the part of the show where it's time to give final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings. So what are yours for He's Just Not That Into You? Lindsay?
Sorry, can you say that again? Dog was barking and I was trying to...
Oh, sure. So we're at the part of the podcast where it's time to give final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings. So what are yours for He's Just Not That Into You? Lindsay?
Thanks. Yeah, it's still a cute movie, a long one. It's a rom-com. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. It was really nice. And honestly, even Brian was like, it's really nice that I recognize all of these actors. And so that part about it was really fun. Continuity issues notwithstanding, length issues notwithstanding, I'd give it a medium. I mean, I think as a date night, I think it's better as like a ladies' night rom-com than a date night rom-com, in my personal opinion. But I'm going to stick with a medium popcorn on that. No frills, really. Just when you order a medium, that's what you get. A little bit of butter, a little bit of salt.
Ron?
I've thought about it for quite a bit because, like Lindsay said, I do love the fact that I recognize pretty much everyone in this movie, and I got a kick out of seeing like when Natasha Leggero showed up to do like one little take to camera for like a little 5-minute scene. That was great, and it was the soundtrack of this movie is incredible. The soundtrack is like it opens with a great My Morning Jacket song, and the songs only stay on that level or improve because you do get the replacements, you do get some Wilco. How did you not get
Black Crowes song, by the way?
Great Black Crowes song. How did you not get the old 97s in here?
Please, thank you. Yes.
Well, whatever. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's because I'm not a rom-com guy. Maybe it's because I'm not especially a Jennifer Aniston dude. But I can only go with a small popcorn, but it would be a good small popcorn, like with the butter and the salt and some of that flavor powder that you get, the big thing that's just MSG, but that tastes different. So you can get some like dill pickle popcorn or some spicy popcorn or what have you. So,
cheddar bacon.
Yeah. So it's a small popcorn, but it's a good small popcorn. It's not necessarily my thing, but there's a lot of stuff in this movie I like. I just would have liked it more if the movie had been 90 minutes rather than 210. But small popcorn.
I kind of would have dug this if it had been like 1 or 2 seasons of a 30-minute television show. And you stretch it out, like all the story. I feel like everybody gets a little short shrifted because there's so many dang people in this movie. And, you know, I said who I think we could cut. You could cut more, but the real, like, the Gigi story is kind of the funny part of it. And she is supposed to be our lens or whatever, because she's the one that gets all the, you know, exposition to from Alex, from Justin Long. But it's really centered around those two couples, Neil and Beth, and Janine and Ben, and one completely falling apart and the other one sort of forcing itself apart, but then realizing, like, what are we doing? We just have to listen to everybody else. And they're the part you should pay attention to if you're going to take anything from this movie. As far as ensemble movies go, this one's by far way more watchable than all those other ones. I've seen New Year's Eve, I've seen Valentine's Day, all those other ones. I'm sorry, like, you can't follow them. There's too many dang people in them. It's almost like watching a parody movie, you know, like Vampires Suck or whatever, you know, one of those kind of things. Everything trying to knock off the airplane movies, which nobody will ever touch. And as far as rom-coms go, and I mean, I'll go back as the one that's got the longest history with them here on this show. It ranks pretty behind most of those, but it's not terrible. It's definitely watchable. I'm going to give this a medium popcorn, but a very specific kind of medium popcorn. This is one of those like candy flavored medium popcorns that you get at the mall or at the fair.
Like, you know, it's zebra like, striped stuff.
Either that, or it's maybe not even zebra striped, because I don't think this is worthy of chocolate and white chocolate. It's more of like where it's got like the strawberry sugar on it or something. And you're like, this sounds like a great idea. And you get halfway through and you're like, this is a horrendous idea, but you finish it because you have to. And there's too much of it. So it's a flavored medium popcorn that lasts a little longer than it should, but it's not the worst thing on earth, and it's passable enough. And it was fun to go back to it with you guys as we sort of revisit those roots here on Film Strip. And it's Valentine's Day to do something. You know, we've done the ironic Valentine's Day version where we do some, you know, trashy horror movie or something else, you know, Basic Instinct, something like that. So, you know, it was nice to do one that actually fit the holiday for once. Don't expect that again, folks, because it's only total happenstance that this worked out that way. But as we say, it's fine. So, medium flavorish popcorn, and there it is. You know, it's done. But it was a lot of fun talking about it with you guys, as always. Ron, tell folks about all the cool stuff you got going on at Den of Geek.
Well, like I've mentioned in this review, I'm doing Snowpiercer, the 3rd season. It is back and colder than ever. Sean Bean is there, and he's just in full Sean Bean mode. Daveed Diggs, famous from being the best person in Hamilton, is also a great stand-in for a film noir type detective in this sci-fi future train drama. Jennifer Connelly was a big part of the first 2 seasons. She may or may not be dead. Spoiler. But also, since I don't really know what's happening with her, that's not really a spoiler either. But between that and The Walking Dead coming back for the latter half, the second of 3 parts of its final season, it's a pretty big... pretty busy, you know, February, March, April for your boy Ron over at Den of Geek.
All right, so make sure you're checking that out. And as always, folks, you can follow the show's social media at FilmStripPod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and search for us on any of your podcatchers. FilmStripPodcast.com will take you to the Anchor distribution site where you can find all those things, and share it with others too, because it helps other people find the show. So until next time, for Lindsey and Ron, I'm Jay. Thank you for listening to this episode of Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Film Strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.